Remember me when I'm gone away, gone far away into the silent land. In many ways, those opening lines from Christina Rossetti's short poem, Remember, sum up the reason why we've gathered here this morning. Well, it's the recent passing of Alec Hamilton which has brought us together. We've come here for a short time to remember him and celebrate his life. Good morning, everybody. My name is Sam Hanna. I'm an independent celebrant, and this morning it's my privilege to lead this brief celebration of Alec's life. Sadly, because of COVID, we've been living through the most unusual and difficult time any of us have ever experienced. A time when numbers are restricted at a funeral service, so only a few people can actually be here. But speaking on behalf of Alec's sons, Andrew and Paul, I'd like to thank you all for coming here to support them as they prepare to say goodbye to Alec. Although Alec's health hadn't been very good over the last year or so, his death last Wednesday came as quite a shock. You're never really prepared for a death, whether it's expected or not, and you often can't really believe that it's happened. And then as the reality sinks in, feelings of grief begin to take over. You grieve because you were close to the person who has died, and the closer you were, the greater the feeling of loss. Of course, grief and sadness are natural reactions to a death, but at this moment what's important to remember is that there were plenty of good times in Alec's life, and celebrate the fact that his life holds happy memories for all of his family. Alec wouldn't have wanted a religious funeral, or in fact wanted any big fuss at his funeral, so this is just going to be a very simple and short service, where I'll take a brief look back over his life. But of course, you all knew Alec. You knew quite a bit about his life, so I can't really tell you very much that you don't already know. But over the next few minutes I can remind you a little bit about his life, and something which might bring back memories for each of you. Memories which I hope you'll share with each other over the coming days. Because after all, whenever families get together, many of the best times begin with the words, "Do you remember?" Alec may have lived in Cullybackey for nearly 40 years, but he was a Ballymena man, born in the town and brought up in Harryville. Born on the 20th of December 1949, he was the fifth of Norman and Agnes Hamilton's 12 children. And growing up in a big family means all the brothers and sisters have lots of childhood stories to tell. Although christened George Alexander Hamilton, everybody knew him as Alec, or Hammy. Definitely never George. Although when he had a drink in him, he might have called you George. Alec went to primary school and then on to the intermediate in Ballymena, and left school as soon as he could. Back in the 50s and 60s, money was scarce, especially for a family of 12 children, so Alec started work as soon as he left school. And through his teens there were a few different jobs, and then he left Ballymena and went off to Birmingham. And while in Birmingham, he worked as a groundsman for the Parks Department of the City Council. A job which led to a change in his life, because one day when he was working in the park, he met a girl called Beverly Eaton. A relationship started, which led to the birth of their son Andrew. And then when Andrew was still quite young, the three of them moved back to Northern Ireland, going to live at Tober Park in Cullybackey, where Alec has lived ever since. And soon after the move back here, the couple's second son, Paul, was born. Then a short time afterwards, Alec and Beverly split up, and the family went through a difficult few years. Alec spent the rest of his life living quietly in Cullybackey. He liked to flutter on the horses, enjoyed a drink in the pub, and loved to take part in pub quizzes. He had great general knowledge, so he was the man to have on your team. And a lot of that general knowledge came from watching TV, because Alec liked to watch documentaries and quiz shows, and he knew all sorts of details about the two world wars. Dogs were always part of Alec's life, and there's one in particular, Roxy. She was really Paul's dog, but Paul lived with Alex for a while, and when he moved on, Roxy stayed behind. And Alec had her until last year, when she died at 20 years old, quite an age for a dog. As I said, Alec's health wasn't very good for the last year, but a sudden passing in Causeway Hospital came as a shock to all of you. And he'll be missed by everyone here, as well as by all his friends. And he'll be missed, most of all, by Paul. And having heard that little bit about Alec's life, we'll pause for a few moments. It should be an opportunity for everyone to remember him and reflect on his life. It'll also be an opportunity for any of you to offer a silent prayer. Alec Hamilton was a private man. He kept himself to himself and never talked too much about his life or about personal stuff. At the same time, he was never too serious. Could be a bit of a joker, the life and soul of the party. And where Paul was concerned, he was always there when he was needed. For each of us, life is a journey through from our birth until our death. The length of the journey varies, but now, after some 71 years, Alec's journey has been completed. So in a few minutes we will leave here to take him to Culibaki New Cemetery, where he will be laid to rest. And now we'll bring this part of the service to an end with a short poem about remembering somebody. It's called When I'm Gone. When I come to the end of my journey, and I travel my last weary mile, just forget, if you can, that I ever frowned, and remember only the smile. Forget unkind words I've spoken, remember some good I have done. Forget that I ever had heartache, and remember I've had loads of fun. Forget that I've stumbled and blundered, and sometimes fell by the way. Remember, I have fought some hard battles, and won ere the close of the day. Then forget to grieve for my going. I would not have you sad for a day. But in summer just gather some flowers, and remember the place where I lay. Congregation, please stand.